Week 16 in the fantasy football season, and with the semifinals for most fantasy owners this week, here's the top 20 quarterbacks. I'm ranking this week number 1 Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. So the last 3 weeks, he's definitely taken his play to the next level. This week, a great matchup versus the New England Patriots, a team he's had great success against in his NFL career, obviously playing twice a year in the same division in the AFC. So Josh Allen, he's hitting on all cylinders. He's running the football very well. And this week versus New England team, it's not going to be surprising if he does put up 40-plus points again. Is this Bill offense? Number 2, Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Another MVP-type season here for Lamar. He's putting up numbers left and right. Last week exploded in that ball game at the New York Giants, over 40 fantasy points. So this week, definitely a tougher matchup, obviously, with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to town. And going back weeks ago, they actually lost 18-16 in that game versus Pittsburgh. But I think Lamar and his team, they get focused, they get things going. And we saw Philadelphia last week versus defense be successful. So I think Jackson has another good game this week. Number 3, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, he's been automatic, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns weekly. And when you got wide receivers like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown out of the backfield, and Mike Gesicki at the tight end position, it makes everything easier. So this week, pretty decent matchup. Cleveland Browns coming to town. But he's been a matchup-proof quarterback all season long, and he's putting points on the board early and often. Number 4, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jalen Hurts, a lot of naysayers after that squeak-out victory a few weeks ago versus the Carolina Panthers. But last week versus a good Steelers defense, they came out throwing the football early and often, making plays. A.J. Brown, Hurts back on the same page. Devonta Smith, one of his better games of the season. And this week here, it'll be a good ball game at the Washington Commanders. Battle in the NFC East. But this Eagle team, people still aren't satisfied. They're 12-2, winning 10 in a row. And Hurts, weekly, it just seems like he has to go out there and doubt the naysayers wrong. So this week, once again, I believe he goes out there, has another good game. Number 5, Jayden Daniels, staying in the same game of the Washington Commanders. So Jayden Daniels, it's been a solid rookie campaign for him, this Commander team with a winning record this season. And Jayden Daniels, it looks like Zach Ertz is going to be out of this game where he's in concussion protocol right now. And I don't know if he's going to get out of it in time before Sunday's ball game. But Daniels, he's starting to run the football a little bit more. He's healthy once again, he looks like, from that rib injury going back multiple weeks. And this week, I know it's a tough matchup versus Philadelphia, but with his playmaking ability and Terry McLaurin locked in with Daniels, I still believe he goes out there and puts up a good ball game. Number 6, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Baker Mayfield, another great season it is for him. Top 10 in fantasy points at the quarterback position. And this week, a good matchup on Sunday night at the Dallas Cowboys. I know this Cowboy team, they've definitely played better, winning 3 out of 4. But when they verse good offenses, they've had trouble all season long. So with Baker and Mike Evans locked in with big games last week at the Los Angeles Chargers, it wouldn't be surprising if Baker puts up similar numbers this week at the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense all banged up. Diggs, their best corner, he's out of the season. And I think Mike Evans is going to feast, and obviously that means a lot of points for Baker as well. Number 7, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. So last week, one of the biggest shootouts you'll see in the NFL, 48-42, losing a tough one. But Goff in this Lion offense, I know they just had to drop back and keep throwing that football where they were down out of the gate 14-0. When you got playmakers like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, and now Jahmyr Gibbs, who's going to get more work with David Montgomery out for the season with the torn knee. I think Jared Goff and this offense will throw the football just a little bit more. And this week, it's a pretty good matchup in Chicago. The only thing, Soldier Field in December is definitely a tough place to play with the wind and just bad weather elements. Jared Goff, he's one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the league. He's on a high-powered offense, one of the best, if not the best offense in the league. And this week at the Bears, I still believe, even though we know he's better at home than he is on the road, he goes out there and puts in another good performance. Number 8, Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. So Sam Darnold, you know he's going to get a big payday this offseason, either from Minnesota if they could fit him in the cap, or another team. And when you got, obviously, playmakers like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones out of the backfield, it makes everything easier. So this week, a middle-of-the-pack matchup at the Seattle Seahawks. Their defense has been up and down all season. I believe this game could be similar to that Green Bay game with Seattle last week, where Minnesota gets off to a lead and Seattle, they just can't make the comeback. So Sam Darnold, like I said, when you got players like I mentioned on the offense, it makes everything easier. And this week, I think it's Seattle 20-25 fantasy point range is a possibility. Number 9, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. So he's definitely struggled this season, is Kyler Murray, no doubt about it. Some weeks he puts up points, and some weeks he just can't do much. But this week, a slam dunk matchup at the Carolina Panthers. They can't stop anyone. We saw Cooper Rush last week in Carolina for the Cowboys go out there and throw 3 touchdowns. And when you got playmakers like Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, even though it's been a mixed bag of result rookie season for him, and James Conner working well out of the backfield. And also with Murray, I want to see him run the football a little bit more. So I think this week, in a good matchup, he gets it down as Kyler Murray and has one of his better games of the season. Number 10, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. So Tua, we know he's been a way better quarterback at home than he's been on the road throughout his NFL career. And last week, it was a down game for Tua and this Dolphin team where they just couldn't get anything going at Houston. But this week, San Francisco coming to town. Their defense hasn't been all that great. And I think Tua and this Dolphin offense bounces back. And also, as well, great playmakers on the team. Tyreek Hill, even though it's been a down year. Jalen Waddle, it's been a down year for him as well. He's banged up. But Jonnu Smith broke out this season as Jonnu Smith, and a top 5 tight end in the league. And also Devon Achane out of the backfield. So with all those factors in a home game in the nice Miami weather, I think he bounces back with a good game this week. Number 11, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Patrick Mahomes, I've said it early in videos this week that I didn't believe he was going to miss this game. Last season, we saw that whole playoff run with a bad ankle. He gutted it out and they won the Super Bowl. And this week already put in a full practice, was available for the media. Great sign he's going to play. So this week, middle of the pack matchup versus the Houston Texans coming to Arrowhead. Remember, this is a Saturday ball game, so Mahomes possibly getting Hollywood Brown back in this game, even though I still think he'll be on limited snaps. But also, DeAndre Hopkins and Mahomes have been a decent combo. Travis Kelce still goes out there, makes plays. Obviously, the numbers aren't as elite as they were for many seasons. And even Noah Gray's been a wrinkle in this offense. So this week, Patrick Mahomes, we've seen he plays his best games where he's got an injury going on, where he focuses more. I just don't know what it is. But anyway, I think this week versus Houston, he has a good ball game. Number 12, Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. So Bo Nix, it's been a successful rookie campaign, I believe, for Nix. I know sometimes the yards are going to be down and the turnovers are going to be a problem. But last week, he did have 22 fantasy points still, even though he only went for 130 yards, but he threw 3 touchdowns. So a Thursday night ball game here tonight with the Chargers. Their defense has been middle of the pack over the last few weeks, even though we saw Tampa Bay go out there and put 40 points on the board versus them. But this Denver offense isn't like that Tampa Bay Buck offense. But I believe Bo Nix, he's been a solid quarterback for the last 2 months of the season. And this week, once again, cracks the top 12-13. Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. So this offense, it's been built around Josh Jacobs over the last month of the season. And Green Bay's definitely had more success running the football more with Jacobs. And he's been obviously a workload monster in the backfield. So Love, his points have been pretty much maxing out at 22, 23 fantasy points. And I know this week it's a great matchup. Monday Night Football with the Saints coming to town. A decimated team offensively, defensively, but also on the offense, inconsistent at the wide receiver position is this Packer team. Some weeks, guys like Jaden Reed, Christian Watson go off for big games, and some weeks they get one catch for 9 yards or something. So like I said, inconsistency in the passing game, but Josh Jacobs, this offense is built around. But I still believe in a good matchup this week. Jordan Love's a serviceable starter. 14, Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets. So the last 2 weeks in warm weather climates, Aaron Rodgers went out there and put on good performances. We saw it in Week 14 in Miami, had a good ball game, over 300 yards. And then last week, 3 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this week back home, cold weather in New York, Los Angeles Rams coming to town, where I don't think their defense is all that great. But Aaron Rodgers, I'm just going to limit the expectations. Many people think he's finally healthy, and now the remainder of the season, the next few games here, he's going to put up numbers, but I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit with Aaron Rodgers. I know they got great wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, who had a monster game last week, but still, Aaron Rodgers, a couple bad hits, it's going to put him back to being banged up and not getting that production. 15, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So this 49er team, it's just been a bad and weird season to cap it all off. I know they've had injuries. Christian McCaffrey, besides 2 games, he's missed the whole season. Brandon Ayuk, he's missed majority of the season now, where even though he played the first 6-7 games, he wasn't doing much anyway. And now pretty much George Kittle, the number 1 option in the passing game. Juwan Jennings, he's been a nice surprise this season, filling in for Brandon Ayuk. But Deebo Samuel, another player, not doing much. for this 49er team, but Brock Purdy, more weeks than not, he overcomes some of the problems in this offense. And this week in Miami, I believe this could be a decent high-scoring game between these two teams. So Brock Purdy, rarely we've seen two bad games in a row for him throughout his NFL career. And this week in Miami, I think he bounces back. 16, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. So Matthew Stafford, it's been an up-and-down season for him. But this Ram team now, first place in the NFC West. Matthew Stafford, when you got two great receivers like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and one of the better backs in the backfield in Kyren Williams, it makes everything easier. So this week at the Jets, it's a pretty good matchup. We saw Mac Jones even go out there and put points on the board versus Jet team in Week 15. So I think Stafford, even obviously crossing over from the West Coast to the East Coast time difference, still could go out there and have a good ball game. 17, Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. So Caleb Williams, he's been taking a lot of bad hits this season, sacked over 55 times, but he hasn't turned the football over, which is obviously surprising as a rookie quarterback and taking all those hits. But he's definitely been inaccurate. So this week a matchup versus the Lions, where they did have him on the ropes going back to Thanksgiving, where the bad play calling by Matt Eberflus at the end, bad clock management, and a couple throws he missed down the stretch of that game. So this week it's going to be a game they're going to be chasing points early and often, I believe, is a Chicago Bear team. But Caleb Williams, his ceiling just isn't high in my opinion. I think he'll max out 18, 20 fantasy points. 18, Justin Herbert of Los Angeles Chargers. Thursday night game, but a tough matchup versus the Denver Broncos, one of the best defenses in all football. So Denver, they've been playing great of late. Justin Herbert, ever since J.K. Dobbins went down, this offense has been one-dimensional, where they can't run the football with Gus Edwards and Kamini Vidal. And Justin Herbert, his numbers have gone down since then, like I said. And with the tough matchup, I just don't see much upside in him this week. 19, Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, it's been a bad season for him. He's taken some big hits. He was benched as well middle of the season, now back in the lineup over the last 3-4 weeks for this Indianapolis Colts team. But he's not throwing the football a lot. He hasn't been accurate. And I don't know if he's just not reading a defense or he just can't throw the football great, is Anthony Richardson. And even running the football, you thought he would have some success doing it, but the numbers really haven't been there as well. So he's been a big bust, where he was that 6th, 7th quarterback, maybe even 5th quarterback off the board, depending the fantasy drafts, is Anthony Richardson. But this week with a decent matchup versus the Tennessee Titans, maybe could go out there and show something. And the 20th and final quarterback I'm ranking is rookie making his debut, Michael Penix Jr. of the Atlanta Falcons. So Penix, he was the 8th pick overall. Kirk Cousins, he got benched, even though this team's 7-7. Cousins, it's been a tough month of the season. 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions for Kirk Cousins. So now Penix getting the call, and it's a good matchup versus the New York Giants. And we know Penix has some mobility as well. When he was a top 8 pick for a reason, so I think Penix could go out there, surprise a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to have a high ceiling, but if you're in a pinch at the quarterback position and you've been streaming to get this far, or you're in 2 quarterback leagues, maybe Penix could get 15, 17 fantasy points. So that's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking for Week 16 of the fantasy football season.